Hello. This video it rounds off the two recent publications I've done. One is about how we have to collaborate. I can't remember how I typed that. It's like a collaborative approach. You know, as opposed to all like divide and rule propaganda crap, partisan nonsense. And it unites also with the new party idea that I said yesterday, and I have got the title of that one. New party, stupid idea, or can it overcome partisan politics nonsense forever? And I said that within the context of the UFO revolution, something could come from that. I said that if it happened today, it'd be pointless. Anyway, I'm not going to explain why, because I did that on my previous video. So, the collaboration, the potential new party, which would be collaborative, would be the majority of people think bollocks to all the party labels. They don't care. Even these right-wing populists are meant to be anti-state, anti-establishment. So, like, it's about everyday people. Now, so we've got collaboration, new party within the context of a revolution. Right, so I've repeated myself a few times there, so now I can move on. This one, just looking over my notes, it's going to be like a video about putting this a bit more meat on the bones of how this comes in the context of the UFO revolution. Because without that revolution, I don't see how this happens, how we can make progress. Now, so I'll start off by talking about the current day UFO disclosure stuff, which is being obviously exploded into life thanks to David Grush. Richard Dolan, someone who's so much easier to respect now, isn't he? I always liked the guy, and I never ruled anything out that he said, but I never thought he'd be so close to being mainstream as he is now. Anyway, Richard Dolan, the US, says that after he wrote, along with Bryce Sable, his book in 2010, AD After Disclosure, a US intelligence figure contacted him, not with the usual good news that we hear now, but that intelligence figure said, "There's just one thing wrong with your book. No one from US intelligence will ever whistleblow unless there was certain, rock solid, cast iron guarantees of no prosecution." No prosecution. That sounds so easy to believe that they would think like that. Clear that Dolan got that message. Now, fast forward to 2023, well, there is now cast iron guarantees enshrined in law ensuring no prosecution, and David Grush has gone through those channels so they can approach Congress and take it from there. And it explains how it is that David Grush has been able to expose so much. Now, these whistleblowers are clearly contacting, surely, well, there's many public figures. I can even name, let me just count them. I can even name 9 myself. Now, probably many more than 9. But I named DeLong, Harris, Schellenberger, Weinstein, Exo-Academian, that's his Twitter name, can't remember his real name, it's Darren something, Joe Merger, or Mergia, Macmillan, Keenan, Blenheim and Blumenthal from New York Times. So Leslie Keenan, Ralph Blumenthal, they are really good sources as well. You know, that if you want people from the mainstream. Now, they're just the ones I can name. That makes me think there's likely dozens. I mean, I can't, obviously I have no idea what the whole figure is. I'd be a lying twat to put an estimate figure on that. But the fact that I can name 9, it's impressive, I think. Now, one of those, the reporter Schellenberger, an American reporter, he's been told the name of the UFO program that I assume he means the program that Grush is associated with, practically the holy grail of the UFO phenomenon. You know, that what we want. I suppose if you were wanting to try and pick any holes and criticise with what I just said there about Schellenberger having the holy grail, you could say, oh, it's not the program name we want, it's the names within it and the locations. Well, Grush has got that, so Schellenberger is just, we can say, well, okay then, Grush has got it. All I need to say on that. And I don't know if Schellenberger's got the name. So I mean, maybe he has, but we don't need them anyway because Grush knows all this. Now anyway, what we're going to next. Right, yeah, that's the UFO background. I just add to them notes I wrote earlier that there's hearings coming up. When them hearings come up, them hearings will be like disclosure. So, just getting on to the new party idea that will emerge potentially from the rubble of the old world, the pre-disclosure world. New party would be like unity, be mildly patriotic. No, I don't think most people are nationalists. Non-divisive, able to discuss as one, rather than thinking each of us wants to defeat the other. And that's how you make progress. You don't make progress by trying to defeat the other. You just end up in the mess that party politics is always in. If it was so great to try and beat the other in party politics, we'd all be all content now and happy with the way blooming politics is. But people aren't like that. Every study shows that people want to be together, not Labour this, Tory that, each other up, smash each other in the face. People aren't like that, they're not violent. They're not conflict obsessed. They're not wanting to beat the other side up. They're wanting progress for their society, for their nation. They're more patriotic, they're more interested in health, they're more interested in unity than divisiveness and conflict. That is how we can get that. It's only the existence of an elite state superstructure that stops that. Now, so let me just get on to the next point. This party would be. Now I've explained when I did the video and I've paper and I put it on medium.com. I've explained and discussed the problems. So it's only right that I now so when I'm skipping those problems in this video, that's not laziness. I've already done that. I'm not going to repeat myself again, so anyone who was watching this video and was thinking, well, must be problems this, well, that's discussed in another video. This one can get on to how it would be if this came to fruition out of the rubble of the UFO Disclosure Revolution. This would be an anti-war party. People don't want to die. Obviously it's pro-disclosure because it's happened. It's open because the world is now more open, and that's now easy for people to think that the secrecy is over. It's peaceful. Now, in this pre-disclosure world, we still have these labels like right and left. What do the right get, you might ask? Well, first, before I say an example, let's firstly note that some people associate anti-war with the right, because these days it's the right wing that do associate with anti-war, such as Tucker Carlson. Oh, what a classic example that is, because he went out to he influenced millions through Fox News. He used his megaphone actually for anti-war purposes, which is quite novel. And he even used his megaphone to promote UFO disclosure and to be on side on UFO stuff. Richard Dolan admits that one. Then there's the conspiratorial nature of many Trumpians. So there have been rather like this. Influencing several million people. And when you look at Le Pen and Farage, and it's like what they're wanting is like this, just for their nation, maybe it's a little bit for their allies. So like they're not interested in the foreign wars. So if they're not interested in the global rule system, the international order, it's just like their nation first, then this is where all this anti-war stuff stems from, because nothing can be more internationalist than getting into a world war. Now, disclosure is already bipartisan. So while I mentioned the right there, you've got the liberal left and people like Podesta, Gillibrand, Jan. Now, anyone who's watching this on the left who says, oh, they're not left-wing, they're just liberals or whatever, fine. I'm just saying how these people are portrayed and thought of by most people in the mainstream, for argument's sake, so to speak. And of course, Barack Obama, as president, is respectful to the UFO issue. And he hasn't updated to go public on the Grush revelations, but he has accepted that we don't know what these things are. Now, I've imagined the question coming back to me saying, yeah, okay, but you are getting a lot, you Paul are getting a lot, if the cost of living crisis and upcoming, if you add universal basic income to what you are saying there, you've got UFO disclosure, you get UBI. If, for example, the techies' predictions are true, because like I say, like, if the techies' predictions are true, and it's not about UBI winning a philosophical war of ideas, it doesn't come in on its own merits, otherwise it would have come in 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, comes in because of the crash in the economy. So, for example, if everyone had tons of money, no UBI comes in because nobody wants to change the status quo or how things are. If suddenly the middle class are suffering an absolute collapse of historical proportions, then UBI is suddenly popular, not in its own right, but because of something bad that's happening to the economy. So it's the same on lots of things. If the whole nation collapses, then views that were thought of as fringe or extreme and all that, they suddenly propel to glory. It's just the same as that in general. But universal basic income, I think, is an absolutely brilliant example of that, though. That's the same as in the 1930s, the idea of an NHS and a welfare state was absolute stupid communism, and then in the 1945 it was mainstream. Because of a change of circumstances from the most radical and extreme and revolutionary of happenings of World War. So, in other words, something isn't just solidly stable and always going to be 42% popular whenever you look at it. It depends on circumstances. I admit that UBI will never come in without an AI jobs bloodbath. And maybe he's added things to that as well, such as the cost of living crisis, mortgage hikes, repayment hikes. But a few minutes ago I said, what do the right get? Well, imagine the populist right. And when I say populist, I mean those who get the populist left, populist right. Populist left are about throwing money around at people. Populist right, perhaps stuff like immigration. Well, they get immigration control the borders, abide humanely and without prejudice. But yes, this is fine. And we just like universal basic income is resolved collaboratively, so is that. And I remind you that the right have been anti-war. They're the ones leading that. Whether it's Ken or Farage, Carlson, their followers. Don't forget that just like Tucker Carlson has a lot of followers, so does Le Pen. And I put the next question as, so the centre-left get? Don't forget this is a collaboration, so it's not me saying, nailing these things to the cross. For example, I say that UBI worked out collaboratively. I imagine that the collaboration would be influenced by how penniless people are or how not penniless people are. So the centre-left get, question mark, answer. Well, I write in my notes, this is the political spectrum's been nuked. This left-right thing's all hat now. Because while the right are anti-war, they're the ones who are anti-war, right? Right-wing, anti-war. Yeah, anti-war's a leftist position. See what I mean? It's nuked. It's like, it's mental gymnastics. So I can't work on this left-right thing in this neat and tidy way because of the nuking of the political spectrum. I mean, the establishment feel more like liberal than they do right wing, but it's really a bit naff because they're pretty much, it's like the labels seem naff now, like they don't mean anything. So for example, I'll give an example of that. If Richard Dolan was here, these labels are just so absolutely irrelevant. He could say to me, because Richard Dolan does have knowledge of the UK, he's often in he's from America, but he's often in Manchester and Leeds, in London, he's often over here. So he would say something like, Paul, liberalism's meant to mean openness, right? Well, you've got a Liberal Democrat Party in the UK. You've got people who think of themselves as quite liberal in both the Conservative and Labour parties. Name one liberal politician. I mean, saying broadly liberal, don't have to be in the Lib Dems, can be like a a Penny Mordaunt or a Osborne or a Cameron or a Liberal left in the Labour Party, or it can be a Lib Dem. Name one politician who's been open on the UFO issue, and I would have to say Richard Dolan that none of them have been liberal enough. Not one. I can't name any. And that, it kind of makes me think these labels are meaningless, because if liberalism means openness, then how the hell can I not name one liberal politician that has ever spoken positively about the UFO issue? It tells me that Richard Dolan is correct when he says that it's just the state superstructure with meaningless labels. Dolan says, he says that there's an open world government and there's a secret government of the state, and it's huge. The secret state's huge. So on the contrary to being open, we are a very closed society. He'd be the first to say the United States is like that, and if I was to say what about Britain, he would say yeah, and he wouldn't try and insult me, but in a respectful way, say Britain is just a puppet of the US, governed from the US. This entire secret state is closed to the open world. That is how it's meant to be, unfortunately. But hopefully UFO Disclosure is coming up and that will smash that to smithereens. Look at the open world on UBI, on the open world centre left on UBI. They'll do something when the AI crash occurs, not till then. When that happens, they would take some attacks from the ideologues that are against UBI, but that's so like water off a duck's back, because once you've got society on your side, then it's like the attacks that were on the NHS and welfare state when that was getting introduced. It's like shrug your shoulders, the game's over, but some people, they've got this emotion inside them that wants to attack. Just ignore them. I mean, can you imagine the aftermath of UFO disclosure? Probably you can't. We'd be at ground zero. That is the time to rebuild society from scratch. Bring it on, is what I say. Bring on the post-disclosure world. When I was writing my notes earlier, I asked myself, is there some timetable towards the post-disclosure world? And I answer, firstly, there are unforeseeables. I didn't know that David Grush was about to expose a crash retrieval program, although I did listen to Ross Coulthart, his interviewer, say weeks earlier that in a couple of months we would know all there is that we want to know about, and he just wished he could say it then. I'm thinking that the Grush thing was the entire lot, and it just came earlier than he expected, more like a couple of weeks later rather than a couple of months later. There's more that he knows. I even forwarded the link of Ross Coulthart saying this in a couple of months message. I forwarded the video where he said that to Ryan Robbins at Post Disclosure World. As even Ryan hadn't seen it till I forwarded it. Yeah, it would have been impossible for me to know the specifics of what Ross Coulthart was going on about, though. So that's the unforeseeables about the timetable to disclose now that things, someone, he might say again, oh, this, something big's coming again, and it happens again. I would know that something was coming up, but I wouldn't know what it was. Nevertheless, Ross Coulthart has informed us by answering a question from his friend and colleague Bryce Sable that whistleblowers are set to expose craft that has been worked, by the people who have worked on that craft. They're going to come forward as whistleblowers. People who have actually touched the crafts and seen the bodies. Furthermore, hearings within weeks, not months, are expected. The hearings will equate to disclosure in combination with whistleblowers who have worked on the craft, seen the bodies, and this disclosure all comes together along with also public naming of the programmes and their locations and the names of the people who worked on within the programmes. So it's all coming. Whew. What an exciting time. What an exciting time. 27-minute video from me with ease. I don't think of myself as a Ryan Robbins or a Richard Dolan for certain, and bloody hell no. But this is like a lot of information being given to us. A lot of information that's open world in a sense that is like meant to be secret world. And it makes me think that disclosure's coming where the secrecy is coming unstuck. What a time to be alive. And it's united by, it's merged. I've often gone on about the state superstructure, and I've been nervous to go on about the UFO issue because of the cognitive dissonance over the UFO issue. But that's been nuked, that cognitive dissonance has been nuked by all this. So now I feel like comfortable with Richard Dolan's sort of world. By the way, I still think that Ryan Robbins has too much cognitive dissonance still. He's still too insecure about it all. I think, let it go, it's fine now. You're liberated now. I think Rush liberated me from that. So I'm more like, how can I put this? I'm not anywhere near as bright a button as Richard Dolan is with his and UFO cases stuffed in his mind. But I think the mini Richard Dolan, I kind of find him easy to agree with what he's saying. So that now for me means that the UFO side of me combines with the anti-state superstructure world and the want for more unity and health and patriotism, if you like. They're more together and less of the divisive nonsense. And there's no cognitive dissonance on UFO stuff, so those two things they've merged into one now, one thing, rather than me just parking the UFO stuff here and not really going on about it while thinking about state superstructure in a more like, I don't know, mini Marxist way. Now I've got the bashing the state superstructure down. I mean, bizarrely, not the what's that Marxist saying? Not from the proletariat anyway. Not from the proletariat bringing down the state superstructure, but from the UFO Revolution disclosure bringing down the state superstructure. Wow, it's such a time to be alive. Those mergings, excellent. I like that. I like it. this. I just think that what we're living through is a friggin' miracle. Friggin' miracle. I mean, when I started this video, I mentioned about the 2010 thing to do with Dolan's book and Zabel's book, that the intelligence officer saying never ever ever happen unless you got rid of the prosecution for it. Well, yeah, there's factions, isn't there, in the state, in US intelligence, but that intelligence officer was quite right, obviously, because nothing had ever happened. no intelligence officers were coming forward risking prosecution. So the factions then in US intelligence regarding UFOs, the ones who wanted the secret out would have admitted to the ones who didn't want the secret out that the secret wasn't coming out, because one thing they would all agree on is don't want prosecution. So the factions war then would have been like one side is totally defeated, which was the UFO side, wanting the secret out openly, whereas the faction that had everything they wanted was the secret keepers. I think Elizondo and Co found a way to sort of like start pushing the envelope a bit, and probably went to Congress and said, come on, just get legislation allowing people to come forward, we can promise you something's going on here. They must have said enough for the open world of Congress to think, yeah, it's worth pushing legislation on UFOs. Can you imagine? That must have took something. And now that, whatever that was, however they did that, there's now these channels for those in the factions war to come forward and to like Grush did, legally get the secret out. And the ones that go to reporters and stuff, I don't know if they're doing anything illegal or not, but they can't divulge classified information legally, obviously. Whether they are or not, it's a legal thing that I am going to stay away from because I'm not sure. Sounds like they're doing illegal stuff to me, but I might be wrong. I can't see how they can divulge a name of classified programs legally, though. See what I mean? So now, though, if in 2010 it was 100-0 to the secret keepers, now the faction that's winning the battle within US intelligence are those who want a secret out in an open world. So that factions war is there, but for me, the secret keepers are now getting absolutely massacred, and I think it's because of the legislation that create channels for it to go through an open world route. I sometimes wonder, the open world of government must be thinking, didn't expect it to deliver so quickly and spectacularly with crash retrieval programs and all the stuff the UFO community always went on about. But it has. And that, as the Bank of England, Helen McCaw said, has ramifications for the economy and the legitimacy of governments and the state. We are on the precipice of a massive revolution. Not because of the Marxist proletariat, but because of UFOs.